Nate, why don't you?
I'm gonna use that in transition into my second harm, if you could say that. That's me doing like policy debate language right there. My second harm, which is that they talk the dialogue, the delivery of the dialogue. I understand that they were trying to make it seem casual and such, but they talk really fast. They talk really low. They mumble a lot, and they've got a lot of weird accents going on. I had no idea that there was such a diversity of accents in the United States. Because and like Oswald in particular is really strange because like
his is weird.
He's American, but he learned Russian really good. So he like picks up a Russian accent. It's really strange.
So at the beginning in one of the scenes, he has like a completely like American accent, and then he picks it up.
That's really weird.
I mean, it makes sense.
I mean, also, so he like sometimes speaks in a Russian accent, and then we got to talk about Kevin Costner's New Orleans accent, which to his credit improves by the end of the movie. Like he gets in his little thing, he gets better.
Do that oh no one. No, I'll be the guy that comes in and he's like, alright, so ready? He's like, the president's just been shot.
Oh no.
Then he's like, oh no.
Oh no. Oh no.
And he says it again, he's like, oh no.
I thought to myself when I heard that line, I was like, "Oh, this is not going to be good from Kevin Costner." This reminds me. One of my favorite lines in all of cinema history comes from this bad movie called The Happening with Mark Wahlberg.
I've heard it's a legendary.
I've heard about that.
I've not seen it. So there's this amazing scene where they like basically they take shelter with this old woman in the middle of nowhere, and him and his wife are talking, and the lady comes up, and it's one of the most bizarrely shot and delivered
I've heard that movie is
I've ever seen in my life. It is a terrible movie, but it's hilarious. This scene where she's like, what are you? She's something like whispering about something. He's like, no, ma'am, we're not. And then she goes, planning to murder me in my sleep. And then he gives this amazing line where he's like, what? No.
I waited to see if that was the line you're talking about. Yeah, that's a meme, bro.
What?
The way he does it, he's like, what? No.
he's like, what? No.
Oh my God.
It's great. And that was a what no moment for Kevin Costner, where they come in and he literally says a line that's like, they just killed the president of the United States. And his best acting he can come up with is, oh no.
I mean, that was the
I guess. Oh no! I mean,
also, I thought that was a failure of the screenwriters, though, one of which was Oliver Stone, and they could have come up with. Well, the screenplay, like I said, is very good for the most part. They could have come up with a bit more of a realistic reaction than that.
Oh no! I think that like even if you would have like not written any line and just had Costner like act this really visual, like that would have been so much better. Visual acting instead of him being like, oh no, because like. I feel like if you write any line in there, it's gonna cheesy. It's gonna come off as cheesy and immature. Like if he goes, yeah, like that's gonna be terrible. If he goes, oh no, if he starts crying, like all of it's too much. He just needs to just lean on Costner to act it well. Have him get this faraway stare and just this shocked expression.
Yeah. I did think that the New Orleans accent was done better by his wife. I thought hers was honestly more.
I was just thinking to myself,
she sounded actually like somebody from New Orleans.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think she might have been from New Orleans. She was really good.
Yeah, and the kids' New Orleans accents were pretty good.
Costner got better at the accent. At the beginning, it was painful. It was like nails on chalkboard. It's like, ooh, I mean, I'm not from New Orleans, but that does not sound natural. Whenever Hollywood actors try to do accents south of the Mason-Dixon line, it rarely ends up well.
Kevin Costner's from probably California.
I don't know why, but to Costner's credit, he gets better as the movie goes on, and it becomes much less painful. So I'm thankful for that. So that to wrap up that very.
So here's another little negative for me is that, and part of this we were watching with open windows, but there are a lot of, I think there's very dimly lit scenes in this movie. I think there's too many dimly lit scenes where it's like you can hardly see their faces sometimes. And like I said, I know we were watching with the glare, but I think even watching that, it was still, there's so many scenes in very dark rooms. And that's just a little nitpick kind of, and it's kind of annoying at times. But another negative for me, or actually, John Michael, what's another negative? Do you have another one?
I don't think I have another negative. My big one was that they left out a lot of the original conspiracy.
Okay, yeah. So you enjoyed a good bit of this movie. But another negative for me, which is kind of a nitpick, is the character. This kind of goes along with their failure at times to make clear a lot of the information they're trying to convey. that guy at the beginning who like pistol whips the dude that they later interrogate. They gets pistol whipped at like this horse track, and he's like, I understood that scene, but the scene where maybe you're not supposed to know at the time really why he's beating this guy up, but it's so weird and it's
out of place.
The way it's filmed is very odd, and the dialogue is so weird. He just says like GD like 100 like over and over again. It's like, okay, we get that you don't like it.
He's like, dude,
and he just like pistol whips the guy. And later you understand who that guy was, and that he was like hiding some files, and he was possibly involved with Lee Harvey Oswald and David Ferrie and Clay Shaw. So he is actually decently important, but you don't really. But as an audience member who doesn't, especially one who doesn't like know a lot about it, like you're like, first of all, when they mention his name, they expect you to remember him, and it's like, oh, you have to think, who was that guy? And then they show an image of him, and he's like, okay. But it's like, he's a kind of an important part of the plot, but you don't really understand his character or why he was pistol whipping the dude at the beginning. It was just so weird.
I was confused by that too.
So that character, I'm forgetting his name.
I will mention that I agree with you that the delivery of the information made it hard to keep track of sometimes. But I do think it was somewhat deliberate. I think they were trying to make you feel like you were drowning in information just like the lawyers.
So it was kind of
you know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, all this crazy stuff's coming at you.
The way the lawyer scene when they're around the table scenes where they're all talking around a table are actually filmed very well. Like it's just cut into all their reactions and stuff as they're hearing all this new information. It felt very realistic. It felt very like nuanced. And not just
for
like
that time. Nowadays that would happen.
Oh yeah.
Another nitpick I have is how much they smoked constantly. Like I know that people in the 60s, smoked, but they couldn't have smoked this much.
This guy David Ferrie, Joe Pesci's character, the guy like supposedly commits suicide. This guy literally smokes a cigarette in like 30 seconds in the movie, and he's already smoking another one.
That guy smokes 2 cigarettes a minute.
I know
he does, and then there's not a scene where somebody's not lighting up. Like they are lighting up constantly.
There's always somebody.
There's always. I feel like all of them are constantly smoking. Like I was actually playing a game with myself. Like spot the person who isn't smoking. They were all smoking constantly to the point where there was like fog sometimes in the room. It was like. It was excessive.
Oh, and another nitpick. This is on the acting is for the most part really good. One performance that I do think was just kind of odd. John Candy, the pretty famous comedic actor. He was in Home Alone also as the polka dude.
Yep.
The polka. He was a pretty famous comedian back in the day. He died. I think a few years after this. He was obviously. I think he died complications due to his like obesity and some other stuff. But so that's kind of sad. But he was in this movie. This is one of his like dramatic roles because he was mostly a comedic actor.
Yeah, he's not great.
Plays that lawyer who wears the sunglasses.
Yeah, he's not great.
It was just kind of weird to see John Candy in this movie.
And they had this shot that was like super close to his lips.
Oh yeah.
And it was like
that was
like,
odd.
was that necessary?
He's like, you dig? It's like, if I give you the enchilada, I'm gonna be dead. You dig?
It was a little bit weird. Yeah,
that was odd.
It was a little bit weird.
But I mean, the line was actually was well written. It was so weird that they zoomed in on his lips like that.
Yeah.
It was just
made it
odd.
awkward.
It made it cheesy too. It was kind of a cheesy way to do it.
Yeah, it's like when you're trying to talk to somebody, but they're getting too close to you constantly.
Now his performance didn't like cause the movie to like go down or anything in quality. It was just it stood out as a little bit odd.
I'd actually forgotten about it.
He was in there. But anyway,
it's
a little nitpick there. So but to summarize, my biggest negative is just at times the information is a lot to take in, and
I think that mostly that has to do with the delivery.
Yeah, as you said,
it's too fast. There's too many accents.
As you said, yeah.
Yeah, so just turn the subtitles on, and then you're gonna have a lot easier time at this.
Yeah. And then a couple other me and Nate, we all had a few nitpicks, but that's my big one. And the big one is the lack of Jackie Kennedy's role,
and other important information.
And then yours,
and I said it's too long.
Yeah.
And what was my other one? I had
the New Orleans accent from Kevin
Costner. It was that. I had something else too. I forget.
About how it being too long, I would agree. I think it could have been maybe 25 minutes shorter.
It would have just
not super short.
It had some fat that needed to get trimmed down. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I also agreed with you on the the delivery and stuff. But there was another important one that I just said.
Well, why do you think of that? Another little quick positive that I forgot to mention that I think is a really big one for me is that I think this movie has a lot of kind of emotional, like it has a lot of moments that like are very like moving and very like they grab you. And the big one is the scene with Professor X, like when you realize all this stuff that I mean, you obviously we will never know what actually happened probably, or at least until maybe 2029 they release the files. But anyway, that scene, that's just one scene where you really kind of like, it's like, whoa, it's one of those moments that grabs you. It's like as he's giving all this information. Another scene is the Costner's speech at the end to the jury. It is too long, but I do think it has a lot of good themes in there, which we can talk about in a second. And it does kind of, it is a fitting kind of conclusion to his character, and it has a lot of good emotional moments in it. That it kind of some good uses of pathos in there. And there's some other moments that honestly my favorite moments is when they're at the they're seeing if you could actually fire off the gun like 3 rounds in 6 seconds or whatever, and the guy's like, there's no chance of that, and there's some like good dramatic music playing in the background, which I got hit on I want to hear what y'all thought about the music.
I didn't
because
like it.
Why?
No, it was just a little bit too much at times.
Okay.
It would swell and it would reach this fever pitch, and then it would keep that fever pitch for minutes on end.
So not one of John Williams' best for you.
Yeah, and I think almost that they didn't. It was a pretty generic. It wasn't a pretty generic soundtrack in my opinion. Yeah. It blended into the background.
For John Williams especially.
For John Williams, it was below tier, and they. I think most of the issue is that they didn't quite employ it properly. Yeah. Like they just kept it on the high really long.
What did you think, John Michael?
I mean, music? For me, I didn't really think about the music as much, but I did feel like at times it was kind of like overwhelming, as in a loud sense, and it didn't really fit certain parts.
In certain scenes, I think it worked better than in others. But overall, it wasn't great. But it did have, but there were some scenes where it would be playing in the background. I think where it really worked is with the scene where he's like, what to speculate about now about what could have happened. Right. And there's the music, this real tense music playing in the background, all leading up to the shots being fired, and then it just goes blank. And this music stops. That was the best part of the music.
There needs to be some contrast in this movie because there's a lot. It's a very busy movie. Yeah. There's a lot. It's either they're talking really fast or they're arguing or there's a lot of music, and so the audience needs a second to just breathe. Like there needs to be a couple pauses.
Or maybe a comedic scene. I mean,
I don't know if comedy has. Yeah. But I'm just like. They just need a second to breathe for a second. Yeah. There just needs to be a pause.
I agree, yeah. It moves so fast that it does feel like sometimes you're like, you can't just like take a second.
Well, either it's moving fast or there's yelling and it's like high emotion or the music is swelling.
Yeah, it's a very intense movie.
It is.
Like, this is not a movie you watch like on like a date night. It's a very intense movie.
Even intense movies, good intense movies know how to employ contrast. Yeah, right. 1917 does this really well. Oppenheimer does this really well. I love the contrast between quiet and loud that Oppenheimer pulls off.
Yeah, this movie honestly with the courtroom scenes and like some of the other elements of like the flashbacks to like the black and white bits in the movie kind of gave me some Oppenheimer vibes and just how it how it was filmed and stuff.
It was like it was a little bit worse than Oppenheimer.
Oh no! I'm not saying it's not as good as Oppenheimer, but just with
by the way, you need to watch Oppenheimer.
I do. I haven't watched Oppenheimer.
It's really you're gonna
shame
love
on you.
Like I can guarantee you. You know the scene. I don't want to spoil too much.
Don't spoil it.
The certain guy gets up to testify about a certain thing, and they ask him to say a certain thing, but then he says another thing. I feel like when that happens, John Michael's gonna like jump. He's gonna be like,
yeah, John Michael's gonna. But that comes along actually, and we should probably move into themes here. That's